My name is Douglas Mitchell, Douglas, Mitchell, Mitchell.
And how old, what is your age?
My age now is 83.
So tell me about how did you come about joining the military? Like what branch, unit? Can you tell me all that information?
Okay, the way it started, we lived up by Mount Rainier, Washington, and when I was 18, I wanted to go to I think it was in Kalispell, Montana, but it was a school for what they called smoke jumpers. It was a U.S. Forest Service organization, and you parachuted in on fires and everything that were way back. And my folks absolutely wouldn't go for that. There's no way. So I convinced them then later that I needed to join the Army because I wanted to get out and see something. And I did, and as soon as I got out of basic training, I went into airborne school, and they about had kittens when they found out about it, but that's the way it was.
Where did you go for basic training?
Fort Ord.
Okay. And do you have any additional training?
Yes, I had OCS, and I had leadership training. I had Army infantry weapons training, and airborne training. And there was just, basically I had a sergeant when I was in basic training that told me that if I ever wanted to, if I planned to stay in the Army and if I wanted to do anything with it and everything, that I would be well advised to stay strictly infantry. That's where the rank was, and that's where you got to tour around all over the place and everything. So I did that, and I took everything that was infantry related that I could get my hands on, and a lot of schools and everything. So.
How were you feeling when you were doing the training? And maybe not just you, but also like your family, how are they feeling before you left for Korea?
I think they were worried. You know, I mean, this is the first time I ever been away from home. I just out of high school. I loved it. I thought basic training, I hear all this stuff about basic training and Army food and everything. Basic was great. And I thought my mom was a good cook, so when I got in the Army, I thought I died and gone to heaven. We had really good food and everything.
And what was it like to you then when they said, okay, you're going to Korea? What was your knowledge of the country and how were you feeling?
Okay, I knew very little about Korea. I was home on furlough for my 18th birthday. Yeah. My birthday's the 27th of June, and the Korean War started on the 25th of June of '50. And we had gone up to Mount Rainier Park on the 27th, my birthday, to have a picnic and run around and everything like that. And when I got home, one of the neighbors, we were on a party line where we lived, and one of the neighbors come over and said, "Hey Doug, somebody's been on the phone all day." He says, my folks' number was calling, and it rang in all the neighborhood. So anyway, he said, "I finally answered it, and it was your military station, and you're supposed to report back immediately," which at that time was Fort Hood, Texas. So I took off, and I figured I was probably going to Korea, and it didn't really bother me a whole lot. I kind of looked forward to it. It was.
Did you talk to people around you? Did you try to find out more about it? How?
No, I don't remember doing that. It just when I got to Fort Hood and reported into my company, they already had my orders cut for Korea, and I had what they called in the Army a 10-day delay en route. So I had 10 days to get from Fort Hood, Texas, back up to Mount Rainier, Washington, and then down to San Francisco. What the heck did they call that base there? Anyway, so I got 10 days to do that, so that lets you go home and spend as much time as you need there, and then as long as you report in on the day you're supposed to report it. Fairfield Suisun Air Force Base is where. And they put me on a plane and flew me over, and to me it was a great experience. I was really looking forward to it.
Wow.
And we landed at either Tachikawa or Haneda Air Force Base in Japan. And I went up to the northern island of Honshu at a place called, it was a Japanese military base during the war. It was Shimamatsu was the name of the base. I was there about a week, maybe 10 days, and they moved us down to Mount Fuji, and then Mount Fuji we did a little bit of training there, and then they took us to Yokohama, and we got on ships, big Navy ships, and we sailed, the unit I was in, the 7th Infantry Division, 31st Infantry Regiment, we were going into Incheon with the Marines, and when we left Yokohama, we got in the middle of a typhoon, and it seemed like we stayed in the middle of that thing for a year. I mean, it was forever, and it was really, really rough. For a great big ship, that was a very acrobatic piece of equipment. But
Wow.
and we got off in Incheon. We went ashore just south of where the Marines landed.
Okay. Did you have any military specialty?
Yes, I'm airborne qualified. I took the basic infantry schools. Let's see, I've got OCS, Army OCS, Officer Candidate School, and Army Leadership School, and a weapons specialty, infantry weapons specialty schools. They have those all over. You request them wherever you're at, and
So when you first arrived, what was it like? Can you like describe the scene and what was the living condition like?
oh, we were living in foxholes. I didn't get to Korea until we landed at Incheon, and we went right to work when we got there. And like I say, we landed south of the Marines when they made their landing in Incheon, and we were in the combat zone when we got off the little boats. And I don't know, it was 2 or 3 days before I ever saw anybody that had been shot. Well, no, it wasn't that long either. I think the second night ashore, I got put on an outpost, and we were inland then, probably 25 miles. I don't know for sure. But anyway, the North Koreans, with their tanks and everything, they attacked the position where we were trying to break through and get back to the north to where their supplies and everything were. And I was on, let's see, the first time I went on an outpost with 5 other guys, and one of the weapons that I trained on was a 2.36-inch rocket launcher, and they put me on the new one, which I think was a 3.2 or something like that millimeter. Anyway, so we got up there. I didn't pay much attention to it, and we got up there and it was dark, and we heard 3 North Korean tanks, a T-34, Russian T-34 tanks go by. And so I loaded up this bazooka when we heard them coming. We were just up above them on the hill, and I put it up to my eye as they were going by in front of us, and it had a glass sight on it, which the 2.36-inch didn't have that. And at night, when it's dark and there's no moonlight or anything, you can't see through a piece of glass. I mean, it isn't there. So we let all 3 tanks go by, and just a little while down the road, there were 3 big bangs, and it was, our outfit was waiting for them, and they knocked them out. Our tanks knocked out all 3 of them. And about the time that shooting stopped, why, we were attacked on the hill by 7 or 8 little guys, I don't know, something like that. And so that didn't last very long. We couldn't see anything. It was dark, but we were shooting into where the noise were. We knew where they were coming from, and threw grenades out and everything like that. And, anyway, so then the next morning after it was daylight, there was a little North Korean soldier, man in a fancy uniform, and we saw him coming down the road, and we were kind of discussing, should we shoot him? Nah, let's see what he's going to do, you know, kind of a thing. And we lost sight of him, and so we're sitting on the edge of our foxholes waiting to get everything together so we can go back to our company area. And I looked up, and here this little guy was coming up the trail on top of the hill, and he had his hands in the air and everything, and he surrendered. So we conquered him and took him back to the company and turned him over to our company commander.
Oh, I see. Wow.
And then a few days after that, and all this time we're living in foxholes, we're full infantry engagement there. And we were attacked a couple times by small units, but it never amounted to anything. And then couple nights after that, I was a machine gunner at the time, and I got stuck on a curve in the road, a little town, I believe the name of it was Cheongji, a little South Korean town. And the road came up from the south, and it made a hard, if you're coming from the south, it would have made a hard left turn, right? And I had a machine gun dug in right where the turn was. And I was sitting there, and all of a sudden we could hear tanks coming, and here I am. I got a 30 caliber machine gun, and there's a bunch of tanks coming. I thought, oh man, who wants to live forever anyway, you know? And so anyway, they got up pretty close, and they stopped, and some guy with the tanks, and still we can't hear any, or can't see anything. It's dark, completely dark. And this little guy says, "First Cavalry Division, are there Americans there?" And I thought, well, you know, North Koreans could probably talk that way too. And finally I told him, I said, yeah, but we're ready for you, you know, if you try anything. And he says, I'll walk in. And so he left the tanks there. And this little second lieutenant from the 1st Cavalry Division come up, and we recognized him. He went back and got his tanks and brought him in. And just a little while after that, my assistant gunner relieved me on the gun, and the lead tank, the one that this second lieutenant was on, I wish I'd have learned his name. Anyway, he and I were talking, and he was standing up on the deck of the tank, and we heard a mortar round coming. And I hit the ground, and he hit the deck of the tank, but it wasn't good enough, and it just completely gutted him. I had him all over me, and that was when I first woke up to really how bad it could get. But, I think my worst experience over there was the first time I used a damn bayonet. People shouldn't have to do that to people. I love the Korean people. They were really nice. We had the South Korean people. Well, the North Korean people were fine too. Their soldiers were a little bit rough around the edges, but the people were nice people. And we had, what did they call them? The Korean volunteers, or I think they were volunteers. Maybe they were drafted and given to us. But we had picked them up in Japan. It's a bunch of young men from South Korea, and I can't remember what we called them. But they weren't soldiers, but they were like laborers, and we took them. I think primarily we were going to use them to carry ammunition, you know, just help out, dig foxholes, whatever. And after a very short time, the ones in my unit, anyway, the platoon I was in, we ended up arming them, and they fought right alongside us. When we dig in at night, we always dug them a foxhole and put a couple of them in there with rifles and everything too. And it was a great help. And they didn't know anything about military. We had to teach them how to, you know, just individually, we taught them how to fire the M1 rifle and stuff like that. And showed them how to use a GI can opener to get into their C rations, you know, a little P-38 thing. But yeah, I enjoyed the Korean people, I really did. Korean Army, we weren't given a whole lot of good information about them. They, I know several times they folded, but as I got to know them better, they had really bad leadership and not a whole lot of training. And I know the ones that we had that were given to us as laborers, when we put them in the line with us and fought, they were just as good as anybody. You know, as long as you were there and you tell them, hey, you know, you gotta put your rifle up and shoot that guy, you know, or whatever. And once they got caught on to what we were doing, they were very good. They were just people like us then, you know. And they were soldiers too. I don't really have any desire to go back over there, although I've had a couple of pretty good offers, my wife and I, but I don't know, I just really don't want to go back over there very strongly, but I certainly have no problem with South Korea at all. people like yourself love you dearly. I mean, everybody I've met has been great. And the people here and the people there too. I don't want to. It's, I have nothing against the people, nothing against the country. It'd probably be unusual to see it with a paved road because they certainly didn't have those when I was there. It was all gravel or roads or just plain dirt roads. And but I don't know. I just soon stay away, and I don't know why. All in all, I'm glad for the experience. You couldn't have kept me home when I got back to my duty station at Fort Hood, Texas. When they called me and told me to report to my duty station, and I got there, if they hadn't have assigned me to Korea right away, I was going to volunteer for it. I just wanted to see what it was like, you know. And I didn't think too much of it once I got into it.
Yeah. Okay, so your brother served with you.
Yeah, he was in a different unit.
Okay. Can you tell me about him too, so we can also leave memories of him? We can leave his legacy too. What was his name and where did he serve?
He was with the 27th Infantry Division. 27th? No, 24th Infantry Division.
Mm-hmm.
And he was east of us. I was just south of Suwon, I think, when he was killed. And we all called him Bud. His name was Steve, but he was all known as Bud for everybody. But he was just
Steve
an
Mitchell.
infantryman. He was an infantryman.
Infantry. What was he? What was he like? What kind of a person was he?
He was a pain in the neck. He was younger than me, and he was a typical little brother.
Oh, he was a younger brother.
Uh-huh.
How many years younger?
I think just a year and a half. Something. Not too much, but enough to be a pain in the butt anyway. But, I'm glad I got to go there. I don't know if my folks thought it was such a great thing after I got home or anything else. I really, a lot of times I would feel like I was doing something for humanity and for you folks, and other times I felt like it was the stupidest choice I ever made in my life, you know. And
Yeah, I mean.
just I don't know. To me, I'm sure that any soldier or any military guy from any nation, to me, the most unpleasant, horrendous thing to look at is a young American laying there dead. There's something about that that was hard to take. But you have to go ahead and do your job anyway. But it was just, you know, that's the part I don't like. That's the part I remember the most. That's what bothers me. I think of it a lot. When I first got home, and I think I had 45 days at home before I had to report down to, where the heck did I go? It's down on the coast too. Can't think of the name of the base now. I think it's a National Guard base at the time. But anyway, I had to report there to the 7th Armored Division headquarters. And when I was home, my mom and I and my dad were talking about all this and everything. And she asked me one time, she says, well, were you at that place where it was real cold? And I says, yeah, I was there. I didn't know that it was that big a deal. You know, I thought that was just part of being in the Army and being in combat. And I said, yeah, I was there, you know, and we talked about it a little bit. And it wasn't until 10 years ago that it started dawn on me what a really big deal that was, you know. It's, I have a friend that for some reason he can't mind his own business, and when he found out I had been in the Army and had fought in Korea, he started asking a lot of questions, and he'd looking up different things on the internet and everything and presented them to me, and that's the first time I ever got really involved in, you know, in anything like that. And And I started having nightmares, but I still do. I still have some bad dreams at night. And,
Really? You have bad dreams still?
pardon me?
You still have bad dreams?
Now I do.
Oh, now more nowadays?
Mhm.
Oh.
Yeah. I've, in about the last 2 years, I've started having migraine headaches all night long. I never sleep at night. Last night did pretty good. I got to bed at 1 o'clock and slept almost all the way through, but usually, you know, it's pretty broken up, sleeping schedule. And I don't know, it's, start having migraines, man, that's a killer. But,
And the nightmares are about the Korean War?
a lot of just individual little 10-second cuts, you know, of something that happened or something that could have happened.
Right.
I don't know, a lot of things that I think of them now. And how did that thing possibly miss me? You know, I mean, how come it didn't get me? One time we were attacking a hill, and I was a rifleman at the time. We were going up this hill, and the hillside was pretty bare. There wasn't any brush or anything on it to amount to anything. And as I'm coming up there at High Port, why, there's a little twig, you know, about as big around my finger, sticking up in front of me. And I remember thinking, shall I run over it or shall I go around it? And I decided to go around it, and just as I stepped off to the side of it, go bang, and the little things fell over. Man, it would have taken me right in the belly button if I'd have stayed, you know, there. And I think, how do things like that happen? You know, I mean, it's, that shouldn't have been.
Any memories that were like happy memories during the war?
Yeah, some of the guys I met and served with, it was, you know, it really opened my eyes. I grew up in a logging community up by Mount Rainier, Washington, and all of a sudden I got in the service and discovered that there were people with different colored skins than I had, and they spoke some language other than Swedish or Norwegian or German. And you know, and I met a lot of really decent people. We had a Turkish brigade that fought along with us for a while. We had a British commando unit with us for 2 or 3 days. This was after we got out of the reservoir. And there was a Canadian battalion there, the Princess Pat's Canadian Light Infantry. And God, there was a Greek unit too. They were cute. They had the little puffy skirts that stuck out all the way around everything. But anyway, they were good fighters and everything like that. We had an Ethiopian group that stayed with us for quite a while, from Haile Selassie's men. But
Wow.
yeah, I really, it gives you a different, probably a view of people that you'd never get any other way. And I think that people, for the most part, are pretty decent. You know, really. It's,
What was your most rewarding memory?
God, when when we got down out of the reservoir, out of the Chosin Reservoir, the company I was in, we had a lot of casualties, but we came through a lot better than some of the other 31st Infantry Regiment companies did. And I was transferred when we got out of there to the to Item Company. I'd been in George Company. I was transferred to Item Company in the 3rd Battalion because they needed NCOs because they'd lost some. They told me that the whole company, what was left of the company, rode out of the Chosin Reservoir on the back deck of one tank, you know. And those aren't very big, about 4 feet or 5 feet square. So they really got butchered. So I was among many guys that got transferred to Item Company as NCO in there, and I took over a mortar unit. And we didn't any more than get set up, and kind of got things together, and my orders came through. I had R&R to Japan. I was the first guy in the company. As far as I know, I was the first guy in the battalion that got to go to Japan on R&R. I think it was 3 days. And we come back, and at that time, while I was gone, they had integrated, they start taking black men into the units. And I got back and I had 2 or 3 black men in my squad, mortar squad. And it was neat, you know, and I never had any problem with them. And then when it came time to rotate home, I was the first guy in my company to rotate home too. And I thought that was kind of neat.
Yeah.
One night, I think it was the first night after I got back from R&R, and we were dug in, we were on the line, and the Chinese attacked, and some of them got through, you know, come through our infantry line, our riflemen. And I was back in the mortar section, and you know, as a mortar squad leader, and all of a sudden you hear all this shooting and everything, and I got up and I tried to unzip my sleeping bag, and the zipper was stuck, and God, come on! You know?
Oh my.
And I had my 45 on my hip, you know, I slept with my 45 on, and I whipped it out there, and this one little Chinese guy come charging down at me, his rifle at high force. And I just thought, well, gopher broke, and I shot right through the sleeping bag, and I nailed him, knocked him down, but it set the sleeping bag on fire. Then I really got started going, you know. I finally got out of it. I didn't get hurt.
How vivid are these memories?
Real vivid. Sometimes I think, God, you know, it seems almost impossible that I was there. And then other times it's just like I was there today. You know, it's different.
Wow.
But
Yeah, so when you mentioned when you rotated home, when was that?
that was in August, I believe, of 1952. I think it was August of 52. And yeah, it had to be August of 52.
Okay. Do you remember like your emotions? Like I'm sure it was, when you think back, was it like just a lot of chaotic moments?
Oh yeah, yeah. It you don't know how to act. You know, when you go to where you're looking out for yourself and protecting yourself essentially every minute of every day, and then all of a sudden you don't even have to think about that anymore. You know, I mean, it just I don't know. My wife and I had 6 kids. We raised them, and I really do think that I would have been a hell of a lot better father if I hadn't had the military experience. I think that you develop something that things that are probably very essential or very noticeable or have a great impact on children. It just isn't that important, and you don't pay any attention. I don't think I was a very good dad. I really don't. I'm very sorry for that, but that's the way it is. I think another thing that I did that probably didn't help any is one of the first jobs I had, I went on the Seattle Police Department as a policeman. And that doesn't make real good fathers either. It just, you know, your attitude and what you have to do to survive and everything. Although I know a lot of policemen that were good dads, but it sure didn't do me any good. But
So was that what you did when you were discharged from military service?
mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, I worked in the woods logging for
Oh.
I don't know, a couple years after I got out, and then I went to work for a hardware store in Seattle, and then I worked for another outfit in Renton, Washington, building railroad cars, and then I put in an application for the police department, and I passed, and so they put me to work as a policeman. But I didn't care much for that job. I wasn't cut out to be a policeman. It just,
Why
I
not?
spent 5.5 years at it, and I thought, nah, this isn't going anywhere. So.
Yeah, how was it to kind of adjust back after you were discharged?
When I first got out, well, I still did another year here in the States before I got out, because because I got extended. Most of us guys during the Korean War, as I understand it, got what we called the Truman year. Harry Truman, the President of the United States, extended everybody's enlistment 1 year. And so being back here and being around people again, and even though a lot of them were other soldiers, and you were training people, I was Camp Roberts was where I was a cadreman. I was training young men, coming in, and they, I don't know, you just kind of start to reacclimatize to this, to not being in combat all the time, but still it was, I don't know, and then you're able to go into town, the shops and everything like that, and meet people. It helped a lot, but it was hard to resettle into being a civilian again. I really loved the Army. I don't know why. I know why I didn't stay in. I graduated from OCS, and I had to extend another 6 years. And my father had been injured very badly in a logging accident. He lost his right leg, and so he was having a lot of trouble. And I went up to visit him a few times, and there was this one young nurse that was taking care of him, and she and I got together and got married and everything. And then at that time, and I don't know if I think it's probably different now, but at that time, a young soldier up to a second lieutenant, first lieutenant, I don't know, I think even probably a captain, you couldn't afford to live well. Most of the guys I visited that were married and their wives were out here with them and everything like that, their homes were usually an old abandoned motel or, just really fire traps and everything. And I didn't want to start out my married life that way, so I put in for a discharge. I had to resign my commission, and I hadn't signed up yet for the 6 years. I hadn't been thoroughly enough nailed into it. And so anyway, I got out, and we got married and had started raising a family and everything. And, so it was kind of neat in a way. But it was different.
Yeah, you mentioned already a little bit, but how do you think the war impacted your life when you came back? Like your attitude or even like perspective on life, do you think it had a big impact?
Yeah, I think it did. I felt, people that you're dealing with every day, you see it in your own life. There's people that have problems, and they're big problems to them, so you sympathize with them, and you show feeling for them and everything. And I didn't have that when I got married. To me, the things that were bothering them or the little incidental problems that they're having were so insignificant. Why are you making a fuss about this? It doesn't amount to anything. And I was very, I don't know, crude or rude or something. I kind of picked up on it after, a while down the road, a year or so later, and I started looking back. Why did I say that to him or her? Why did I do this? What was I thinking of? I'm not that kind of a person, but I was that kind of a person.
I see. Do you think you have any animosity towards the opposition and what happened? And when you were serving, did you have like negative thoughts or feelings about the war? Do you recall?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's.
Of course, right?
We were in a situation where the United States really wasn't threatened. We weren't in any peril in any way for it, and yet there were a lot of guys went over there and died. And it took me a while to realize really what we were doing. At first, the first time you get hit real hard, or you pull an attack on a hill, and they're really dug in well, and they knock the heck out of you, and you see all these young kids laying out there dead, and you figure, what in the hell are we over here for? They're not attacking America. They were attacking Korea. We never even heard of Korea until we got there, basically. It was on the radio, the news, for about 3 or 4 weeks, a month, I guess, 5 weeks before we got there. But it just wasn't a big deal. And, But as we could see, like when we landed at Incheon, we took Suwon, I think it was, away from the North Koreans, and the Marines were up north of us at what was the capital of Korea? The South Korea.
Seoul?
Seoul. And we were down a little further south, I believe it was, at Suwon. And when you saw the people and saw the graves that they had established, you know, there's a dead guy there, and you see people really, they were really just devastated. And then you start thinking, well, maybe we're doing a good thing after all. And then we got kicked out of there for a while, and after the Chinese come in, after we got out of Chosin Reservoir, and we got kicked out of there, and then we went and took it back again. And that time, it was, you know, you could really see what the North Koreans did. And then my whole purpose in life was to kill as many North Koreans as I could. I mean, it was just, and the Chinese too, and I don't know. It just, I think it's unfortunate that this has to be a necessity of humanity. You know, it seems to be the way people think.
And so you said, you know, you still get nightmares and everything. So do you think about Korea often and what happened there often?
Yeah, I do, and I don't know. Sometimes I dream about things that I didn't remember for the last 63 years. You know, and I'll have a dream and I'll remember this with a certain, you know, I'm with another individual, another soldier, and maybe we're whatever, doing some military function, and you were really under a lot of stress and getting pounded good and everything. And three of the things I hated worse. I guess there was three, yeah. One of them was being on a patrol at night. I hated that, where 5 or 6 guys, 7 or 8 guys, whatever we'd send out at a time. And that was one of them. And I hated it when you're going up to knock out a machine gun and you're down on your belly and all the guys behind you are shooting into this machine gun position. You got to get up there and you're going to shove a hand grenade in there and hope that the guy doesn't have riflemen on that are on the ball guarding him and everything. I hated that. And then I think the premier, most horrible thing in my memory is the damn bayonet. That is not me.
What would you do if you were young again and another war started in the region?
Oh, I'd be there.
Yeah?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow. Even after all that?
Yeah. When, what was it? When George Bush Sr. attacked Iraq, and I heard something on a radio broadcast one night, and they were talking about something about they would accept older men that had been in previous wars for certain assignments within their thing, and you had to, I don't remember who it said you had to contact, but this was on the radio. I heard it plainly, and I thought, well, what the heck, my kids are all grown and gone and everything, and I tried to volunteer to go to Iraq, and they wouldn't take me.
Oh, wow.
I could still make a hell of a sniper.
Wow. What makes you have such, I guess, like, strong heart, you know?
I don't know. I really don't know. I'm very aware that there are a lot of people in this world that don't have it as good as I do. We've got it made. Absolutely, you can't live any better than this. And to think that some clown is stomping on some little guy that can't protect himself, and it really gets to. Now that's me. I was at the leadership school at Fort Ord, California. It was after I got out of basic infantry leadership school.
Wow. How old were you again then?
I was there at 49, so I was 18 years old.
Yeah, what do you want to say to the maybe generation now and the soldiers now? Anything you want to tell them?
I can't imagine anything on the spur of the moment that I'd want to say. Good luck, I guess, is about it. And I'd certainly wish them a lot more than that. I just haven't. I don't know how to put that in words without thinking about it. But just be proud, you know. Be proud of your uniform. Do your job. Do it right. And good luck.
So you haven't been back to Korea, but you see it on the TV and you hear stories about how it's doing really well now, like the
Mhm.
economy's good.
Yeah.
So, yeah, how do you feel about that?
I think it's wonderful. It makes me feel proud. You know, that I had some little tiny thing to do with that. Probably very, very insignificant the part I played, but I'm happy to see that. I think that's fantastic. I really feel touched by the Korean people feeling gratitude toward us for what we did. Every time I meet a Korean, a South Korean, and a lot of North Koreans, like this young lady I was telling you about that we had here a while back, that came out with us. She was 8 years old when she and her parents hiked out of the Chosin Reservoir with us. And I'm glad that we were able to give them something that they never had before. They probably, well, if North Korea had taken them over, they'd never had anything. But I feel very happy. I feel very elated when a Korean, South Korean or North Korean here in this country says something about it and they really appreciate it and everything like that. I think that's great. You know, it's at least the world knows I'm here, or was here anyway. I mean, it's just, it's a pretty hard thing to do, to just give it to somebody, but I'm glad we did. I really am glad we did.